Get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. And whatever the hell this channel's about, today, this channel happens to be about angels. And potentially that thing that seems to be sticking its head out from behind the tree back there. Keep your eyes on it. So, I told a story yesterday about a time more than 30 years ago when I mysteriously ran into a greyhound in the middle of the mountains of Appalachia. Couldn't explain it. And as mysteriously as it appeared, it just kind of disappeared. And several people commented on that video that they thought the greyhound was an angel. And I didn't laugh at that because a few days ago I received a story of an angel that I felt I should have shared with everybody who watches these videos, but I didn't. So I can't help but think that those comments might have been inspired by angels so that I could tell real stories of real angels. Back in the spring, I made a video called God Told Me to Deliver This Message. I don't know, that sounds like a nut. Somebody commented, and I agree with them. The first 3 words spoken by a false prophet, God told me. But something happened, and many of you watched that video, that I felt compelled to share with the masses, so I did. And I'm glad I did, because a lot of people got a lot of benefit from that video and the story I tell in that. And a few days ago, somebody commented on that video, Quentin Williams, new viewer, and I printed off, it was a long one. I printed it off to read it to you because I want to share this story with you about angels, because somebody listening today might need to hear this. But first, we hydrate. Okay, Quentin Williams wrote, you know how I know that your testimony is real? All of those things that have been following you in your woods didn't come within a mile of your voice. God made sure that nothing good nor bad would interrupt what you had to say. I'm a veteran myself, and I understand your pain. Quentin, thank you for your service. But I also understand your joy. I don't know where I'm going when I die, but hopefully it's somewhere better than this place. Not all things are bad in this world, just not all things are good. I'll tell you something that happened to me way back when I was a teenager. I was in a bad place, hanging out with people my grandma would have killed me if she truly knew what I was involved with. Well, I was going to North Star Mall in San Antonio, coming out from the carport after getting off the bus. This lady comes walking towards me, and she had on layers upon layers of clothing. She had all of her belongings in a shopping cart, so you could tell that she was without a home. I thought to myself, did she just come out of the mall like this? Not judging, but being observant. She ended up dropping something on the ground and was having a hard time picking it up, as it looked like it was crushing or causing her a great deal of pain. I rushed over and said, don't worry about it, I'll get it for you. She said, no, I can get it. It'll just take me a while. But me being raised the way I was, I did it anyway and asked her to just let me get it. She obliged, and she chuckled with a smile and said, what would I do without you? I said, I don't know, but and I paused. She had the whitest teeth I'd ever seen in my life, but her face and hair were dirty. She looks me dead in the eyes and says, do you mind if I say a prayer with you, because people like you are rare? Of course, I was more than happy to do so, because I was having a horrible week and needed the uplifting. This was no joke. I placed my hands in hers, and there was something. I don't know what it was, but it felt as if there was energy inside her, and it was flowing through me. As she started praying, I instantly got lightheaded and started to cry. I'm thinking to myself, what in God's name is going on here? Her voice was so soothing and kind. I felt no malicious intent or negativity coming from her. Everything around me was just drowned out except her words. When I snapped back into reality, she was staring at me with that beautiful smile and said, I finished about 5 minutes ago, but didn't want to disturb your peace. It was so surreal that to this day I remember that she didn't smell dirty. She smelled clear, if that makes any sense. She told me that God has plans for me and that I should get away from the situation that I'm putting myself into. We talked for maybe another half an hour to what seemed like forever. She was so nice that I didn't want to leave. Now, mind you, this was in August in Texas. I had on baseball shorts, tank top, and t-shirt. She had on layers and layers of clothing to where it made this, what couldn't have been more than a 125 to 135 pound woman, look like she was closer to 200 pounds. I was sweating profusely while she remained as dry as humanly possible. She then proceeded to tell me to go into the mall and just take in what's going on around me. The chaos, the positive, the negative, the sights, sounds, and smells, and they will be just like they're brand new. That's when I thought to myself and was like, okay, yeah, this is crazy. She read my freaking mind and told me that the only crazy thing at this moment is that you don't realize what just happened. I explained to her that I do believe in what had just happened, but didn't know how to take it. Now, mind you, I grew up in the church, and I'm very familiar with the word, but this was different. The pain in my body stopped. The thoughts that I had just 2 days before about taking my own life were gone. She then said, well, my job is done, and gave me one of those types of hugs you get from your grandparents when they haven't seen you in a while. Remember what I told you, Quentin? She said my name. I never told her, nor did I catch hers. Shocked, I said, have a blessed day, and she replied, my day has already been blessed. And we turned away from each other and said, have a good day. I took 2 steps and turned around to ask her what her name was, and she was gone. No shopping cart, no clothes, just gone. I didn't hear the cart make a sound as I would have heard something because it was on pavement. I stood there for a good 5 minutes trying to rationalize what had just happened. To this day, I truly believe that she was an angel sent to me because that night I was almost killed. My so-called friends ended up lacing a blunt with formaldehyde, and I ended up in the kids' playground in the middle of the apartment complex. I stayed in with the cop standing over me to see if I was alive. He said he had checked my pulse and everything, and there was no response, but for some reason I came back. That was the day that I found out that a complete stranger will treat you better than your friends will, and most of the time, they have your best interests at heart. 3 months later, I went into the Navy. Now I know that this has been a long message that I put here, but I had to get this message out to someone, anyone, who may feel like the world is against them and they have nowhere else to turn to. Even now, as I'm typing this, that same feeling of forgiveness and love is flowing into every word that's here. You are not alone. You're loved, blessed, and highly favored. Amen. Again, a message from Quentin Williams. This event occurred in San Antonio, Texas. I don't know if Quentin is still in Texas. I believe every word of that story, just as I know every word of the story I told in the video called God Told Me to Deliver This Message is true. I'm going to try my best, knock on wood, to put that video at the end of this one in case some of you didn't see it. It's really worth watching, especially if you're feeling down. And now I'm going to read another story about an angel that I met. This might appear to be a shameless self-promotion of my totally awesome novel, Isle of Capri, which is available on Amazon in print or Kindle, and of course available with my personal autograph and a really neat bookmark if you buy it from our Etsy store. See, Crazy Lake and Bigfoot Sasquatch always have my 6. And that link is in the description box as well. But this book, I always say, good luck finding, it's written as fiction, printed as fiction, good luck finding the fiction. What I'm going to tell you is that this part is true, and having experienced this in the Philippines, I just felt like how could I not have read Quentin's comment? And maybe it took me telling the story about a dog and then some more tapping saying, hey, the dog was an angel to, finally push me ahead. But this will be somewhat brief. In the book, many of you have read this, thousands of you, the main character, and it's written in first person conversational, just like I did the lunatic. So the main character has a guest. He's showing his guest around the island, explaining Filipino culture, talking about his past, and especially what happened on a very mysterious, super haunted, paranormal / cryptozoological island known as the Isle of Capri. And he's talking about a woman, a person without a home that he met, referred to as the prospective princess of the Philippine Islands. I told this story probably 3 years ago. I don't know if there's anybody still around who remembers it. This story is true, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. And at a time when I thought I was never going to see my homeland again, and my great fear was how to feed a little 2-year-old boy every night because I didn't have the money to feed myself and his mom, I met this person who I do believe is an angel. I call her the prospective princess of the Philippine Islands, and that's who we're on our way to see, saying this to his guest. A year ago, I would have referred to her as a homeless beggar, but that's only because I'd not come as far as I have today in reprogramming my mind. A lot of it's that I'd started judging the people of the Philippines the same way they often judge me, and that's not good. That's one of the biggest dangers of constantly being treated the way you are here at times. I have to skip some of this. You start to reciprocate. And I'm keeping my eye on that as closely as I am the whole agoraphobia thing. So the main character was starting to develop agoraphobia. Didn't want to go outside because of how he was often treated. Not by all, but by many. Anyway, the princess isn't homeless. She has a home, albeit one she's constructed herself of plastic bags and tarps she's found here and there. It's just right up here a little further. See the tops of the banana trees on the horizon? Just there. And a beggar? Perhaps, but she's never asked me for anything. I first noticed her one afternoon about a year ago when I was walking into a local store to buy something. I can't remember what, but I do remember I was frustrated, worrying about some problem or another I was convinced that I had. Being harassed the whole way to the store for, well, have to skip that part. Oh no, I remember thinking as I prepared to walk by her, just don't make eye contact, just don't make eye contact. I passed her and her hand did not come out. I glanced down at her, sitting in the small amount of shade provided by the building, and she was looking up at me, smiling but not begging. And man, what a smile. Her face was scarred. She had burn marks or birth defects of some sort all over her skin, and she was as grubby as an old doll that had been left out in the weather on the playground for a few months. But what a smile. Teeth so white. I wrote her off as mentally insane, like so many others have me. She had to be crazy, right? How could someone with so little be smiling so big? She was so dirty and scarred, I wouldn't even begin to be able to make an accurate estimate of her age. She'll get me on the way out, I mumbled to myself. But when I came out, she was gone. I'd see her again, off and on, while I was out and about, and ironically, it was usually during times when I was worrying about some problem or another that I thought I had. Once I saw her in front of a Jollibee restaurant. That's kind of like the McDonald's of the Philippines. They sell fried chicken and cheap rice like everywhere else, and the burgers suck. Don't waste your money on the burgers. She was chewing on a chicken leg while I was on my way in. I looked down at her, sitting there eating on the curb, expecting her hand to come out, and it never did. But she gave me that smile again. I asked her if she wanted some food. She looked at me like I was the one who was mentally insane and held up her drumstick for me to see, as if I hadn't seen it, and shook her head no. Weird, I thought. She'll get me on the way out. But when I came out, she was gone. I was starting to think that perhaps my prospective princess of the Philippine Islands was merely a figment of my imagination. I told you at the beginning of this rambling that I'm crazy. I'm absolutely insane, and I know you figured it out for yourself, like many of you watching. Then, one day, while out for a walk, thinking about how much I missed hot showers, real pizza, and those flushing toilets we've all talked about, I found where she lived. There, under a tarp tied down to a wall and gate of what appeared to be an abandoned property, sat my prospective princess of the Philippine Islands. I watched as she did what appeared to be her daily chore. She was taking small stones, pebbles really, from one shoebox, one at a time, and then placing them into another shoebox. Every time she did this, she'd make a tally mark with a pencil in a notebook she kept. She noticed me staring after a few minutes, and she offered me the same smile she'd always given me when I'd seen her before. She waved me over and motioned for me to sit with her in the shade. "Asa imu balai?" I asked her. "Where is your house?" She motioned around with her hands, never speaking, letting me know this was her house. "Asa tuluka?" I asked. "Where do you sleep?" She pointed to the ditch in front of her bench. It was lined with palm leaves, and there was a tarp on top of the leaves. I could tell that the makeshift bed was actually slept in regularly due to its indention into the ground, proof of regularly bearing weight, though I doubt that weight was more than 75 pounds. She smiled again and then continued counting her pebbles. She was keeping the tally marks in traditional sets of 5, 4 lines side by side, and then the 5th crossing through the 4, from top left to lower right. I watched for a few minutes, and I felt a feeling of peace wash over me, one I'd rarely felt and one I'd never experienced from any of the mind-altering medications I'd been given in the States. I offered to take the notebook and keep the tally as she moved the stones from one box to the other. She gave me that smile again, showing how happy she was that I was willing to help. I've never intentionally gone looking for my prospective princess of the Philippine Islands at times when I've been flustered and needed my perspective reset, but she's always seemed to appear, like magic, at times when I've needed it the most. I don't think that intentionally going out to compare myself with someone less fortunate would work, because frankly, I think that is disgusting and the act of doing so would have negative energy attached to it. I do think, however, that the great consciousness of the universe puts us in the places we need to be and in contact with the people we need to be in contact with when we are supposed to be there and when we are supposed to be with them. Can I get an amen? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When Quentin Williams needed the lesson, the teacher showed up. I've come a long way in reprogramming my mind, and it's led to a more peaceful life. I still have a long way to go. Nearly 40 years of programming cannot be undone in the 5 years that I've been here. And I have to watch it with the locals. If I go out and I'm not in just the right mood to be able to ignore them, a little heckling from a few of them can set me off. But I've come a long way, even with that. I'm more comfortable in my own skin than I've been in many years, perhaps ever, and it's taken no pills, no therapy, other than my own, which I've been describing, and I've not been locked up in any antiseptic smelling wards or clinics. I've been walking around, enjoying the fresh sea breezes of this beautiful archipelago in the South Pacific, a free man with no addictions, minus that biannual binge I've mentioned, with a simple understanding that in life, things happen. We can label them as good, or we can label them as bad, or we can simply accept them and not label them at all. Because remember, it isn't about good or bad, it's about perspective. And at times when I lose sight of proper perspective, I have a friend that I can visit to regain it. We can sit, count rocks, and enjoy the shade. Doing so always seems to put everything into the proper perspective. That story is true, and part of the story that was not written into the book because it wasn't applicable, again, the main character, that person existed, and to this day I believe that person was an angel. I knew exactly where she lived. That ditch that she lived in was a shortcut between where we lived and what they call Poblacion, which means downtown. And I took Dearly, my beautiful bride, aka Giggly Girl, with me through there on numerous occasions to introduce her to this woman because I wanted Dearly to talk to her. I spoke, as you could tell in the book, fluid Visayan, but just enough to get around, not enough to have an in-depth conversation with somebody on a personal level. I could talk with the servers at the restaurants, the people at the hotels, strangers on the street. I could have a very casual conversation, but I couldn't get deep. So I wanted Dearly to get deep with this woman. I wanted to hear her story. Whenever we walked through that shortcut, not only was she never there, her tarp was not there, and her makeshift bed was not there. The first time that happened, I assumed maybe she'd moved camp. She set up somewhere else. Nor did we ever see her when we were in Publiation or town, when we go to Jollibee or the department store or wherever. Never saw her when I was with Dearly. And after the couple times that we had gone through there looking for her where her home was, and it was gone, I would return later, a week or so later, not even thinking about her, but being in one of those terrible, terrible moods, worrying about some problem I thought I had. And she would be back. She was there. I thought my problem was being stuck in a third world country with no hopes of getting home. I was on an expired visa for the last 2 or 3 years I was there. I was living in the shadows. Had I been caught, I wouldn't have been deported. That would have been kind. I would have been thrown into a Filipino prison where there are 50 to 100 people in a cell, and there I would have stayed until someone on my behalf paid my back fees. You know, you got to pay like $75 every 2 months. It's not a lot of money. We were just so broke. I could either renew my visa or we could eat. That's just how it was. And so somebody else on my behalf would have had to have paid my back fees to get my visa current. And then they would have had to bought me an airplane ticket to get me out of the country, to get me out of prison. That's how it works over there. And that's the position I was in. But I realized through the Prospective Princess of the Philippine Islands and through everything that happened that is unexplainable, to go from that point to get to this, you can't see it very well. I'm sitting over the hill. To have a $500,000 property right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, have all needs met and to want for nothing. There is a power greater than us who has a plan for each and every single one of us. And sometimes when we can't see that plan, we're sent a messenger. We're sent angels. They are real and they are among us. If you're having a hard time, you hang in there. Your angel's on the way. I know your angel is on the way because I've seen mine more than one, many times. And I'll see you for more next time.